Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Martin Barrett and I'm the Product Ambassador at Milner Browne. Today I'll be presenting HANA for SAP Business One Explained. This is the agenda for today's webinar. We try to keep these short and at a high level because we know that your time is valuable. We will be looking at what SAP HANA is, what that means to you with SAP Business One, and we will try to answer some of the technical questions that will come up when you're considering moving over to SAP HANA for your Business One system, perhaps during your next upgrade. So, what is it and how does it work? I suppose firstly, it stands for High Performance Analytic Appliance. Not the best acronym, I have to admit, but it is a great product all the same. It's SAP's own database technology. So why did they build their own? Well, many multinational SAP customers will find it very hard to get value from the vast volume of information that they were collecting. This is often referred to as big data. They need to detect patterns, trends, predict and react to what will happen in the future, and do this as quickly as possible. The trouble was that it was taking too long to analyze this massive amount of information. Just for example, it might take weeks just for a company to analyze their customer buying patterns. So SAP met this challenge by developing a new database technology alongside their customers. They invented a new database called SAP HANA. First and foremost, this stores the information in the server's memory. When we think of databases, we may well think of Microsoft SQL or similar. This old type of database mainly stores information on the server's hard drive. Now, I know this might sound a little bit technical, but I think it's worth understanding. So each time we need to access the information, the server has to find it on the hard drive, extract it, and then display it. This takes time. SAP HANA already has the information ready and loaded into the server's memory. A comparison of the speed of response might be the difference between when someone asks you a question and you're already knowing the answer compared to you having to look up the answer in a book. HANA already knows the answer. Added to this, pattern recognition algorithms are built in. For example, sales forecasting to detect seasonality within your product range. That's a good example. And a good example of a real-world use of HANA is actually with the McLaren Formula One racing team. Each car has about 150 sensors constantly recording key performance information during a race, producing a huge amount of data, in fact nearly 3 terabytes per race. This used to take a week to analyze after each race. They now do that same analysis 14,000 times quicker during a race and in real time. What's more, they took it a step further and compared that same information to what happened in previous races. This allows them to predict when they need to change tyres or make adjustments to the engine management, all of those variables. For them, this could be the difference between success and failure, winning the race or losing the race. So I suppose you might be thinking, that's great, but we don't collect anywhere near as much information as this. What use is this to us? Well, first of all, SAP have made this database technology part of SAP Business One. In fact, it's now really the database of choice for SAP Business One, although Microsoft SQL Server is still supported and will be supported in the future. I think it's a good idea just to recognize that this is the database technology of the future with regards to SAP. But that said, we also had to think about what this means in the real world for our customers. And the answer we arrived at was management by exception. For example, we might need to remember that on a Tuesday morning we have to go into the system, run a report after remembering where it actually is in the menu system, go through the report line by line, looking for exceptions that we need to react to and resolve in the business. With HANA, we no longer need to do this. We can define what we need to see and when we need to see it. Those exceptions you spent time looking for, you can now automatically display on your screen in real time, allowing you to react and resolve when they happen. This gives the people in your business two things. First of all, they can embed their intelligence into the system. They can define what they need to react to and when. Also, secondly, they have more time to focus now on actually doing the work instead of figuring out what the work is that needs to be done. With HANA, we no longer have to be concerned about slowing the system down when we need to analyze information. Any of you using SQL Server might have experienced performance issues at some point, perhaps random slowing down of the system, SQL locks if you're technical at all. HANA doesn't suffer from this and frees us to have a new approach to how we run our business. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just go into SAP Business One itself running on HANA and just have a look at what this actually means. So the first thing you might notice is a different user interface over and above the one you've no doubt come to love. It's a nice clean interface, but far more important than that is dashboard based. Okay, so here we have a dashboard, and it's made up of a series of tiles. Each tile is called a widget, and each of those widgets actually updates in real time. While that's on my screen now, as information changes on the system, this information will update within each of these widgets. Okay, so this is, and within these widgets, I suppose, just to mention the types of widgets as well. So there's many different types, but foremost there is a sort of bar charts, graphs, pie charts, as we can see here. There's also KPIs that you can define within the system and track. You can also create, my particular favorite and very simple, are these counters. Okay, a library of these do come as standard. I lose track now of how many there actually are, but there's numerous of them. And more importantly, much more importantly, you can very easily create your own. So based on any query that you create within SAP Business One, you can create a widget within SAP Business One based on that same information. So this is really where management by exception comes in. For example, I can define that I want to see any new sales opportunities at the first stage of our process. So I have a widget here that's just showing me any new sales opportunities at the first meeting stage within the system. Like I said, if people were adding in new sales opportunities to the system, this number is going to increase on a live basis, or as they move to the next stage, it's obviously going to decrease the number. So I can view, because I want to view these sales opportunities just to get an understanding of them, as they come into the system. So I can just click on the number and it drills down to the underlying information, and that's true for any of the widgets. You can view the records that are underneath there, and then from there I can actually drill down, in this case to the sales opportunity, view the details, and sort of take the necessary steps that I need to take. Okay, so it's a very simple concept, but the important thing is that I'm defining what I want to see. I'm seeing it in real time, and I'm able to react to it as soon as it appears on my screen. So in this way, your business can define what each user needs to see and react to on a daily basis without having to worry about slowing the system down. And it's a great way to embed the intelligence of your business into the system and focus on the jobs that need to be done within your business. Another good example is the enterprise search, which is located at the top right hand corner here. So this is very much like Google for your business. It searches all data held within your system. So we tried to come up with a way in which we could query this information and try to get as many matches as possible just to demonstrate the power of it. So what we came up with was searching for the number 1. Okay, so I'm just going to put in number 1, press enter. Okay, so it's now going through checking every single piece of information held within your system. Okay, looking for those matches, bringing that information back, grouping the information into logical sections of SAP Business One, and also highlighting all of the matches. So for example, if I go to sales invoice here, we can see where the number 1 is highlighted, where all the matches were found. Also, if I hover over a record, so in this case here, we can see this sales invoice number 7 actually has 2 lines there, and it shows you also the matches within the lines of the document as well. Okay, so this makes it very, very easy to find information in your organization. And from here, you can also drill through, obviously, to the underlying record as well. Okay, so I suppose, a very practical use of this. A practical example might be if a customer calls in, they don't know their account code, but they know their name. So, for example, if I search for Richard, okay, just open up the window 4. Okay, I can now see that I've got 2 business partners here that both have Richard somewhere associated with them, and if I hover over this one, I can see there's Richard Corn there, and if I hover over this one is Richard Browne, and that's the one I'm actually looking for in this case. And then I can drill through to the customer and answer their queries and everything else from there. So, I think it's a good demonstration of the power of HANA on SAP Business One. If you try to do something similar, and I have tried to do something similar on Microsoft SQL, it takes a very long time if it works at all. Okay. They've also added what's called extreme apps as well. So these are additional or extra parts of SAP Business One that are not part of it on the Microsoft SQL database. And that's simply because it wouldn't be capable of running them quick enough for them to be usable. Examples of this extreme apps are cash flow forecast, example here. Okay, so this just enables you to get a real-time view of your forecasted cash flow, and also to be able to interact with that at the same time. So for instance here, I'm just dragging it back to look at my cash flow slightly historically here, and it's showing me the net amounts, any incoming and outgoing amounts. This is a demonstration database, so it's not the best for sort of real life data, I'm afraid. You can also then interact with this as well, and you can include or exclude certain objects within the system, whether you want to include opening balance, the incoming cash, incoming transactions. You can also set the certainty levels. So let's say perhaps there's a spate of credit card fraud going around, so I'm not so certain that payment will actually hit the bank than I was before, so I could drag it down to a lower certainty level and just save that, and then the system goes through and kind of sort of recalculates the impact of that. I can set the certainty level up here that I want to include or not include. Okay. You can also consider delays in payment as well. So, the system will perceive whether a customer generally, let's say, pays late, or indeed whether you might delay payments to suppliers, and it can consider that automatically within the cash flow forecast. But I think as such, it just is a nice representation of some of these applications, additional functions within SAP Business One that are coming out on the HANA platform, simply because it's incredibly fast at analyzing information without slowing down the system for the rest of the users. So it opens up, I suppose, a whole new world of opportunities for them. So I'll just come out of this now. There's also intelligent forecasting as well, which we can just have a quick look at here. So this is sort of, let's say, sort of sales forecasting. So if we just okay, so I'm just going to choose an item here. It's probably not going to be a great example. Okay, you could do it for all your product range, obviously. Okay, you can choose whether you want to base the forecast on historic sales order, deliveries, or invoice. I always prefer invoice, rather have the actual sale confirmed. Okay, and we can just forecast then. So what that does, that looks at the history, the sales history of the product based on the date range that you've looked at. Based upon that, it then decides which algorithm to apply and in effect then forecasts for you what it expects sales to be. In this case, in the given month. You could also do the same per day, per week, per month, per year. It doesn't make a difference to HANA at all. So just on the algorithms there, because I can never remember actually what they're called, and you'll see why in a second. These are the two main ones. So first of all, we have triple exponential smoothing. That's kind of like the averaging one. And then we have this, which is a great, very snappy phrase, linear regression with damped trend and seasonal adjust. Okay, so this is basically when there's seasonality detected in a product, it might apply that. You can also interact with the forecast as well. So let's say there's quite a big peak here, but we know there was a one-off marketing activity that resulted in those sales. So we can actually downgrade those sales there quite simply by dragging and dropping. And we can now see that the forecasted quantity has adjusted as well. You can then save that forecast and use that within your MRP runs to help you purchase your stock and make sure that you can fulfill your customers' requirements. Okay, so another nice example. Other ones available within the system might be advanced available to promise, which just enables you to schedule your deliveries and to sort of divvy up your stock. There's also interactive analysis within the system as well, which is a connection into Excel, which really presents, I suppose, a cube of information to Excel for you to actually then go through and use all of the normal Excel sort of functionality to analyze the information and to sort of pivot the information and everything else. So, for example, if I go into here, you can see here what it does. It exposes these cubes of information, which you can then just select what you actually want to report on. So, for example, I can report on the net sales amount. Okay, and then let's say perhaps we want to look at that by business partner group. Okay, so we can very easily and quickly start analyzing that information and obviously go through, and format this using all of the normal sort of Excel functionality. It's a very nice tool for doing, I suppose, sort of like what-if scenarios, and keeping in mind that this is just pulling the information out live from the HANA database and is a standard feature of SAP Business One on the HANA platform. And again, it isn't in the SQL version just because of the speed of analysis, really. Okay. So just back to the presentation here. So I suppose just some of the technical parts of it, the techie stuff. First of all, the operating system for let's say the HANA server is a SUSE Linux. Okay, you can administrate that from a Windows server. In fact, that's required. Certainly, I was a little bit concerned myself about dealing with sort of Linux because my skill set is primarily sort of Windows based, but all administration I've had to do is actually from the Windows server, so I don't need to log into Linux. I actually personally need very little knowledge of the Linux system. The database runs on there and the database does its job, and that's all I need to know really on that side of things. It's on-premise or private cloud, so you get the options there. I was an IT manager for 20 years and I highly recommend the cloud. This frees you from having to worry about hardware backups and the like. It just lets you focus more on the system and less on the hardware. And that's really where the value is, I think, to your business. ODBC drivers, so these are normally required to link to the information if you're using an external reporting tool. Perhaps you're using Power BI or similar. You can access the information exactly in the same way that you do with Microsoft SQL. Okay, HANA Studio. This is the equivalent for the SQL Server Management Studio that comes with Microsoft SQL. Is very, very similar. Has all the same kind of functions that you'd expect. So it's not a massive shock to change over from one to the other. They've obviously thought about this and thought about the migration path. So this is just the HANA Admin Studio where you have your databases and within there you have your tables, etc., etc. You can run your queries and look at the information. It's all exactly the same except that it's just now looking at information within HANA, and therefore you can query the information much easier and quicker and not have to worry about performance issues and slowing the system down for the users. Okay, and back to the presentation again. The SQL syntax, so this is the structured query language. Okay, so the type used by HANA is very similar to Microsoft SQL. There's just a few sort of minor syntax changes, a few commands here and there. Again, the important thing to know is that there is a translation tool for moving your queries over. Maybe you've got queries written within SAP Business One. It's very easy to use this tool to translate these over so they work on the HANA platform. Licensing, I think is much more straightforward on the HANA database platform than it is on the Microsoft platform. You license it by 64 gigabytes of memory blocks at a time. So normally a system might need, a standard system might just need one block of memory. If you really want to be safe, then you might have 2 blocks of memory. Whereas Microsoft SQL, you've got a choice. You either do it on user or processor cores, and it's becoming increasingly kind of hard to work out and actually expensive as well. So licensing, very straightforward and clear. Now, a very important one for anyone who's had to deal with IT and Microsoft SQL databases at all, and this would probably be the bane of their life, is there's no more SQL locks. Okay, so what this means in real terms is when someone's running a big report in the system, okay, this always resulted in SQL locks, and what that meant was for other people actually trying to do their work in the system's slowing down, they're having to wait, and then it's working, and then it's slowing down, and so on and so on and so on. So with HANA, that issue goes, that's gone. Okay, so a massive bonus, I think, because that used to drive me mad somewhat. So that's it. So, it's a very, I suppose, sort of quick overview, and I hope that you think about SAP HANA during your next SAP upgrade. That concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good day.